Welcome to Fire Engineering Radio and to our show, Pride and Ownership, The Love for the Job. I'm your host, Chief Rick Lasky, and last time we got to visit with our boss and brother and great guy, Chief Bobby Halton, the editor-in-chief with Fire Engineering Magazine, taking care of things at FDIC for us. By the way, FDIC, April 7th through the 12th, you want to go to the best conference in the world. Last year, over 27,000 attendees. Cutting edge with the techniques, with the things you're going to learn in the classrooms, the people. The only complaint that you'll have for Bobby and his crew, for his staff, the only big complaint is there are too many classes to choose from. And that's a pretty sweet complaint, if you ask me, that you got so many good classes. There's guys that are frustrated because they want to go to this one and that one, and they have a hard time choosing. It's always been that way. What a great program, a great week. It's an incredible place. Indianapolis, the city, the fire department is absolutely incredible with what they do to support the Fire Department Instructors Conference. It's just unbelievable. It's a great time. If you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. Was just at the Texas Fire Chiefs Association and the Texas Association of Fire Educators Conference down in Galveston. A group of great folks with some great programs. They allowed me the honor of presenting their keynote. And we got them off and running. They've had Chief Halton down there and some other folks before. Good group, very much into doing the fire service well for the protection of our folks and educating them and training them to the best way possible and making us all safe and allowing us that chance to go home to our families. And then one more little plug here. Just remember, May 1st and 2nd, Keeping Tradition Alive in Louisville. The Honor Guard and Pipes and Drums Symposium. If you can make it there, if you can pay for your hotel room, it's a reduced rate, and your transportation, there's absolutely no registration fee. We're going to feed you breakfast, the breaks, lunch both days. We got a supper planned with the big jam session, a beer tent. We'll even get you that covered. It's going to be a great time, great instruction. For the Honor Guard, the National Honor Guard group is there from Florida, from Tampa. What a great group of guys there. United States Marine Corps Color Guard and the gunnery sergeant from the Marine Corps coming out for training. Don Shannon, pipe major for the North Texas Caledonians, is going to be out, along with Steve Cameron and just a host of other incredible instructors. A lot of good stuff. We're trying to keep the costs at a minimum. That's what this city's trying to do. We want to keep tradition alive. Fire Engineering Books is going to have a booth there, so we talked about that before. If you can't find a book or a video that you need for the fire service, you haven't went to fireengineeringbooks.com lately, because they've got everything you need. So 2 shows ago, we talked about the firefighter and what you need and what you have to do to be good at what we do in our business in this profession. And last show, we visited again with Chief Bobby Halton, and we were talking about just what an honor and privilege it is to visit with all the different fire departments all over the country, the firefighters, how they're all the same and yet a little bit different. We have the same issues and problems going on in each firehouse all over North America. It doesn't matter where you're at. What happened to somebody 3 years ago that might be getting ready to happen to you, or you've got something that's going to be happening to someone in 3 years from now. It just kind of runs in circles. We've all been there. It's easy to find people, a brother or sister to lean on and get some advice. Today we want to spend some time talking about the rookie firefighter and what our expectations are for those rookies, and let's turn that around as well as what they should be expecting of us as officers and firefighters and chiefs when it comes to doing their job. We've got a very special guest with us today, Battalion Chief Jerry Wells with the Louisville Fire Department. Chief Wells wrote an article for Fire Engineering we're going to talk about that was in December's issue. A lot of great dialogue and a lot of great responses to that article. We're going to visit with Chief Wells to kind of let's get to the bottom of what we're looking for with our rookie firefighters. Jerry, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir.
And Jerry, real quick, so we can just get that out of the way title-wise. The title to your article, and that was in the December issue of Fire Engineering. It was in the roll call series. What was the title again to that?
We called that The Rookie Firefighter, Preparing for the Role.
And what did I know we talked originally about, and the reason we asked you to do that, well, let's back up for a second, and this kind of lays the foundation for why we asked you to join us today. First of all, tell our listeners, how did you get involved in the fire service?
Well, it was a short and a long story altogether. I got involved in the fire service back when I was a little bitty kid, probably from about the time I was born. I had a father that was a firefighter, a dad that was a firefighter, and he retired as a battalion chief in Dallas, Texas, and so all my life growing up, I had a career fire captain or a fire chief that I lived with, so I got to see it firsthand. And that kind of got me excited. I was the kid with all the fire trucks and all the fire gear, and I had pictures of me and my dad's gear, and got to go to the firehouse and spend some time with the fire guys, and just got the whole childhood experience, and it just kind of lit a fire in me, well, off I go.
And I know I've mentioned this, I think, once before when I was talking with, I think, Glenn Corbett about your article, and I'm telling you, buddy, and there is a tremendous amount of respect and admiration for your father. Anytime you mention the Dallas Fire Department and you mention the name Wells, first thing that pops up is your dad, Jerry. And I've met him. He's a great man, but boy, oh boy, there's an awful lot of people that just think so highly of him. He definitely made a difference while he was working in Dallas.
Yeah, I've run into that myself, and that's just by happen chance. Actually, I did my EMT school ride-outs down there, and I was actually on his shift in his district, and I saw some of that respect. And he was just my dad all my life, and I didn't get to see that side of him. And then when we did paramedic school rotations, I was down there for 10 shifts, and then for the next 6 or so years of my life when I was a paramedic, and we'd take a critical patient down into the Dallas hospitals, I'd run into some paramedics. They'd see my name on there, and they'd go, "Oh, you ain't kin to that Chief Wells that we had?" And sure enough, and then they just go into how the word they always used was how fair he always was, and I always stored that back and go, someday that's what I want somebody to say about me, is that how fair the guy was. And I thought that was pretty cool to stand around and just hear that over and over and over.
Oh, and I've said before, with my dad having been a firefighter and being able to watch my dad do his job and hang at the firehouse, and it was just absolutely incredible. There's a lot of folks out there that have had that opportunity that know what I'm talking about, and some that haven't, and I wish they could experience that. But I definitely can see where you get your demeanor when you're on the fire ground, Jerry, and your guys love working for you. You're cool under pressure, just kind of calm how you handle everything. Which goes a long way. We've talked about that before when it comes to building the confidence with the troops, especially when they're in a good firefight. They got a lot going on. They need to hear that calm voice. Hey, when you were in the firehouse as a kid, or when you were growing up, when you really started thinking about being a firefighter, did you have, and I know obviously your dad was probably your favorite chief officer, your favorite company officer, aside from your father, and you by all means talk about your dad if there's some traits you liked about what he did. We talked about the fairness, but did you have a favorite company officer either there or when you got on the job in Louisville, or somebody that, and what was the reason they were your favorite officer?
Well, I had several. I had two of them in particular that jumps out at me. One of them, well, both of them have retired since then, but one in particular we've talked about around here. That was Butch Flanagan, and I guess I'll go with him because of what you brought up. But I remember one time we were on a pretty good structure fire. We had fire all around us. We were on a second floor breezeway, and that was a time in my career where that excited me, and I was, concerned, excited. And he walked up, put his arms around me and another guy like we were in a huddle at a football game, and he goes, "Okay, boys, just like this," he said, "Plan A is not working. We better figure out real quick what Plan B is, and we got to get to work." And just like that. That's kind of the way, him, that's kind of the way he talked.
Yeah.
He didn't use big words. He didn't use, a whole lot of technology or techniques. It's just all about, let's just do this thing. And I walked away from that not going, okay, I've got to get to 2.5, or this is going to burn down around us. I walked away from that huddle going, I want to be like that someday. How calm he just told me that, and I'm scared to death. And that's what I said. I want to be like that someday.
Well, and I know, well, and Jerry, you've heard me talk, and you've met some of my mentors and some of my idols, like Jack McCaslin and Eddie Enright and Tom Freeman and Benny Crane, and just the long list of John Norman, Vinnie Dunn, the people, you just, you don't want to be them, but you want to take those traits and slap them all over you to make a better person. And I
always,
definitely, go ahead.
It's always those that are cool under pressure that keep the whole fireground, at a lower level because of the way they stand there, or the way they handle themselves.
And I remember the Village West fire here with Butch, getting here, I was here, maybe just under a year, but good fire, apartment building, people jumping out windows. We had burn victims, fire, breezeway, people trapped and everything. And you just looked at him, and he looked up. He'd look at you like, okay, we like you said, we got to get this done. But what was neat about Butch, Jerry, and I think you'll agree, is the fact that he had that ability to lead his folks, like you said, and get people to do some pretty incredible things. But at the same time, I don't know. It was like he could read a building, he could read a fire, and he could read people, and it just made his decisions that much better, if that makes sense. Yeah. And
he always, he spent a lot of time in the firehouse preparing his guys for that. So when we did walk out in the heat of battle, as soon as we pulled out the doors, he had a certain level that he expected us to be at, and we wanted to be at that level for him, because he did that in the firehouse with us.
And isn't that something that's kind of fallen on the wayside, if you will? Is I remember, and I tell the story of thinking I disappointed my chief, Bob Rubel. Not that, when he chewed me out one time, or when he led me, or when he gave me some strong advice, if you will, I wasn't as worried about getting my feelings hurt as much as I was worried about disappointing him. And I think that's kind of the way you were with Butch. A lot of guys were. You didn't want to disappoint him.
Absolutely. He, to use a term, he invested some of himself into us, as a captain or as a company officer should do with any new person or a young person who you're molding. This is your opportunity to mold their career or mold their highway for them, and he invested in us, and we wanted to perform for him and make him proud of us.
Well, what a great man. We love him. We get to see him at retirements and some other things. Well, let's shift gears for a second. We talked about your favorite company officer. We know your favorite chief officer was your dad. We know that, as well as he was for a lot of other folks. I know you got a great group of guys on your shift, but you've been around here long enough. Favorite rookie? A favorite rookie coming on the job for you, and why? Why? Tell me who it was, and what stood out about him.
Shoot, man, I've got a lot of favorite rookies. One of them that jumps out at me immediately was a kid named Mark Murphy, and the reason he stood out is he came in with a group of guys. And every time they were standing in a group together, it was kind of like, to make a word picture for you, Mark was standing on his tiptoes while the rest of them were kind of at rest position. He came in with an excitement, and the excitement wasn't necessarily in his mind, it was in his heart. And he was always like ready to jump. He was just waiting for somebody to give him an opportunity or give him a chance to go do something. And I saw that, and I kind of like seized the moment. I go, okay, this is my chance. And I guess it turned out that he was probably one of the first real young rookies that I had as a company officer, as a young company officer. So that's where everything started with me, being in charge and having a young life here that was my responsibility. And I was lucky to get a guy that was so energetic, so ready to learn, he was already a pretty valuable person in another career, and decided, I want to be a firefighter. And when he came here, he made the shift and said, now I'm the new guy, I'm the rookie, I'm not the supervisor anymore. Now I'm the new guy, and I've got a lot to learn. And he he played the part.
Well, I think if you heard those sirens just a minute ago, that was probably him playing.
Yeah, that was him.
Provide us with some background noise there to enhance the show. But and I know, and it is hard. I put you on the spot there, buddy. And I'm sorry
Well, you put him on the spot, really, because. But like I say, I've had 10 rookies since him under my, and I can tell you something awesome about every single one of them. The newest one that I've worked with right now is Rob Reed. We can go into some stories about him, but everybody had specific, incredible qualities. It's just, these guys come in and they're excited to be here, and that's what's exciting for a company officer.
Well, and it kind of goes back to what we've talked about, and John Salka and I, we love this saying. We use it in our programs. A leader with great passion and few skills always outperforms a leader with great skills and no passion. Mm-hmm. Isn't that kind of the same way? If you got a rookie that comes in, Jerry, that is just, they've got all the skills, they've got all the skins on the wall, they've got all the certifications, but they lack the passion. I don't care, if you're lighting plates on fire and riding a unicycle and balancing things, you're not going to get them.
Absolutely.
But if they come in with that passion, you can do what you got to do.
Half the battle's won. Half of it's there. They're ready to learn.
Well, and again, what I meant by, I know I put you on the spot because you could go on about Jonesy, Jeremy Jones and Portsfield. I mean, the list goes on, and we've had great rookies that are no longer rookies on the other shifts too. I know the awards committee has a hard time each year when it comes to deciding who's going to be the rookie of the year. But let's talk for just a moment here about preparation. You hit on it in your article, and time again, Jerry, people come to the firehouse, it's a mom or a dad, or they come in and they say, my son's thinking about getting involved in the fire department, my daughter, they're in high school right now. What should they be thinking about? Are there programs, are there classes they can take? What would you tell that say mom brought her daughter in or her son and they want to talk about, I want to become a firefighter? How would you start that off with them?
Well, I would always probably start out earlier than what they think that I'm going to, because they think I'm going to talk about the schools and all. But we'd start back with at least somewhere around the time that they get their driver's license, which is pretty much at the time the kids start creating their identity by making good choices and bad choices. And once you get that driver's license, you have the ability to speed or not speed, drive under influence or not, make those decisions. And sometimes around the people, the kids that you put yourself around helps you make those decisions. So pick your friends, know that you're going to make some decisions at 16 years old that could affect the rest of your life, and start that process right there. Then when you get in high school, obviously the classes that they're going to take is going to definitely have something to do with their future. For instance, algebra is great for us when we're calculating drug dosages as you're a paramedic. Correct spelling and grammar are a must for when we're accurately doing our reports for our EMS and everything. You got to spell right, otherwise we look like fools. So
right.
Computer skills, chemistry for also in paramedicine and hazardous materials response, anatomy, biology, physiology. I mean, firefighters, described as a jack of all trades. So anything that you can take in those areas and apply yourself and make it a useful semester for yourself is going to really help you out in this industry. It's incredible, really.
Well, and
we could go as far as FFA or shop.
Oh yeah,
I mean, look how much of building construction's in our business.
Exactly, and I was just going to mention there's some of the shop classes as well, Jerry. We drive by the high school all the time with the ROTC out there training on presenting the colors and that kind of with the ROTC, the junior ROTC, with that paramilitary fashion, taking orders, yes sir, yes ma'am, and all that. What a great way to kind of fold into things. And you mentioned something that's important, and I've told my son this. He's in college now, going to Texas Tech, where they. What are they, Red Raiders there with the shoot 'em up or the guns or whatever? I'm getting used to all the different signals and signs. If I did that, somewhere else, they'd think I was flashing gang symbols at them or something like that. But the college thing. But I've told him, I said, Ricky, the biggest and best advice I could give you when it comes to decision making is, buddy, how would it look on your resume? And you and I, without mentioning folks, we know people that are good folks now that weren't thinking at one time or were led astray. Maybe folded to peer pressure, that now that's stamped on their resume. And when they go to interview for a fire department, most fire departments, because of the liability of putting some in somebody's home with their children and everything else, you do something that you shouldn't have done, it's going to follow you for the rest of your life.
Exactly. How can I defend this in the future? How can I defend my actions?
Exactly. Well, okay, so we got them going through high school. Thinking about those classes and everything. And I know in some states, in Illinois for the longest time, you had to be 21 to be a paid firefighter, 18 to be a volunteer. Here, 18, regardless, if you're going to enter into the fire service as a volunteer or, paid on call or a paid guy. Actually, let's back up. We talked about some of the programs. What about the Explorer programs?
Absolutely. A lot of the interview questions that, when you're sitting in there getting interviewed for a fire job or even getting interviewed to get into a fire school, they might ask you, what have you done yourself to prepare yourself for the fire service? Tell me, you want to get in our school or you want to come work for us? Well, tell me what you've done on your own. And, that's a good time for you to be able to tell them that, yeah, I joined the Explorer Post in Louisville, and that's a program that we have where 15 years of age or so they can join and they can start learning fire service stuff. And they can go out on ride outs and they learn how to pull hose and all the different programs within the fire service that they can do. Many departments have that. Many departments have ride-out programs, just like we do, where they can come and just walk in here and go, I'm interested in doing this. Would you let me hang around for a day just see if this is what I want to do?
And we
volunteering in your town, yeah.
Gary, and we've accomplished that through we do waivers. We've got waivers that if somebody comes in and they want to ride out, if they want to experience that for the day, and I'm not trying to change anybody's policies out there. I understand the whole liability thing, but part of that's making sure you guys know how to drive their rigs in the first place.
Right.
Seatbelted, like Billy G says all the time, and
right.
Trying to, with his mission with trying to get folks to be safer. But I don't see anything wrong with it. You obviously know because you're in charge of an entire shift here that we support that.
Mm-hmm.
But getting ready to come out and ride out that Explorer Pro, training them, it's a great way to recruit from your community. The Explorer program, if done properly, is an incredible program.
Mm-hmm.
I got to ask you this: we've got some great kids in the Explorer program. Who's your favorite Explorer in Louisville? I'm going to put you on the spot.
Oh, definitely Whitney. Whitney Weber, and I guess she's graduated up to the.
Yeah.
She's beyond that now, isn't she?
Yeah, she moved on into the reserves, and she's.
But she's an example. That's what our Explorer Post is all about, right there.
Exactly. She was. I guess the story when she was in third grade, she came on a tour here. If you remember that that story, and you may have even given her the tour.
As bad as I hate to admit it, I probably was.
And she said that day, she said, "I'm going to be the first female firefighter in Louisville." We've mentioned the women in the fire service. I have the honor of presenting for Cheryl Horvath, who was just a guest on Bobby's show on the road with Chief Bobby Halton. Cheryl and the rest of the board members from that group are incredible, and she went to the fire camp for young women that are aspiring or looking to get into the fire service to give them that experience. And what was really cool, Jerry, is I was in Oregon teaching a class for the Oregon Fire Instructors Group, another great group of people. Two female firefighters were sitting in the front row. And before we started, the one looked up and says, "How's Whitney doing?" I said, Whitney Weber?" She goes, "Yeah." She said she was in our fire camp, and
wow.
smallest girl to ever go through it, but the hardest working. And Whitney just, I think you may have been told, she got so pumped when she heard that. And now she's in a fire academy. She's in a fire academy going through it, and knowing her, she'll probably come out on top, number one in her class or close to it the way she is.
I would expect so.
Oh, so you've got the Explorer program. You talked about the types of classes and doing ride-outs and that. We talked about getting into an academy maybe and that kind of school.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many. Enough of our firefighters know about that. Let's fast forward a little bit. They get hired. They go through the process. The backgrounds are done, and they're here. We've got them sized up for uniforms. They park their car or their Ford F-1000 or whatever they're driving. And they're walking into the firehouse. As a company officer, as a chief officer, what would you expect them to be thinking about as they're walking up to your firehouse?
Oh, I mean, the biggest thing they're going to have a problem with is controlling their emotion. I hope they're that excited that it's just making their mind blurry. I remember that's kind of how I was when I got there. I could tell a real embarrassing story on myself from my first day of. Actually, it was rookie school, but we won't go into that. But as I wrote in this article at one point, and it wasn't my line, but they're coming in here, and more than likely they're going to walk into a group of guys that are kind of in the middle of shift change, and some of them are hanging out, some of them are sitting around talking, and they're going to have a real uncomfortable feeling. And that's totally natural, and that's what they're supposed to feel. But, one of the lines I wrote in here was not mine, but don't even think about sitting down. Number one, you're not there to sit. You're there to start your career. You're starting to learn. And number two, you might sit in somebody else's chair, and that's the worst thing that could happen to you on your first day, So it's not a time to get comfortable. It's a time to really get busy and get to learn and
well, sure. You know what? Real quick here, you told me something. I've taken so much from your experience with riding out with Chief Salka. One of the stories I tell folks about over coffee, over supper, when we're out visiting with different fire departments all over across North America. When we get to that, when we talk about the treatment of rookies, could you tell us the story when you guys were running around making rounds and you were out late?
Okay. Yeah, we
went out going to.
Yeah, exactly. We went out. We were making rounds, and we came back from the rounds. We got back to our firehouse after midnight. It was about 12:30, and when we walked into the firehouse, there was one person awake, and it was the rookie of the house, and he was sitting up on the island in the kitchen, pretty stooped over. You could tell he was exhausted. He had the TV on. He was just staring at it, and I don't think he was watching it. I think he was just there staring. And I go, "Hey, man, what you doing up?" And right in the middle of my sentence, just kind of like I said it right there, "Hey, man, what are you still doing up like that?" I remembered that on the wall over there, they have the rookie's 10 commandments, and one of them is to be the last to bed, and the other one is to be the first up in the morning. And I remembered that last to bed thing, and I go, "You're waiting up for us, aren't you?" He's real timidly, he goes, "Yes, sir," like that. And I go, "Okay, well, understand that this is my once-in-a-lifetime trip to New York City, riding out with a FDNY. I'm excited. I'm like a 10-year-old kid. I probably wasn't going to go to bed tonight, be perfectly honest with you, but I'll tell you what, because I know where you're at. I'm going to go in here and lay down so you can get you some sleep." And he kind of went, "Thank you, sir," like that. Well, great guy, man. I guarantee you he'll be an officer in that department in 10 years.
And it's kind of, and we've talked about that before. I think Dean Felposh, one of our chief's aides here, one of the fifths, when he and Chris Waller and Brian Freed first went out there, they called me on a Saturday night that we were talking, and one of the things we talked about the whole brotherhood thing, and then Dean said, "Chief, I'm kind of ashamed of myself." And I said, "Why?" He goes, "Kind of ashamed of how we've treated our rookies here for years." He goes, "When they walk in the door, it's always, sit down, shut up, Rook, don't say, you don't speak unless you're spoken to," and just, he says, "Boy, is that wrong." He goes, "These guys do the opposite. They take them under their wing, and I mean, what do you expect? Now you're in your office, your new firefighter shows up. All right, after he walks in the door, let's say, and you're taking care of business in your office, how would you expect your firefighters and your officers to treat that young firefighter?"
The way I would expect them to do is I expect them to meet this kid at the door, be watching for him, and basically greet him as he comes in. And the reason I say that is because the firehouse can be so intimidating to walk into.
Oh, absolutely.
And if somebody would just know this guy's coming and say, "Hey, buddy, I'm firefighter so-and-so. I'm going to spend some time with you today. Welcome here." Let him understand that we as officers have to understand that we're going to have to rely on this guy to be 1/6, 1/10, however many guys you have at your firehouse. He's a part of your team. And we need to treat him like that. He's not an outsider, trying to fight his way in.
We don't haze him.
Right, we don't haze him. He's a member of my team, and I want them to make him feel welcome. He's going to have to understand that he's got rookie responsibilities, but they're not going to be the nasty stuff, We treat him with respect, just like I saw in New York City that day. It was unbelievable to stand over in the corner and watch those older guys show the respect to the young kids, That was cool.
And what a stifling process to tell someone to sit down, shut up, and not say something. And I've seen that before. I've been through that before.
Chief, that was said to me as a rookie, and they said, "Let's go." And I had the gall, I guess, to say, "Hey, where are we going?" And they go, "Don't worry about it, just ride backwards." And I remember to this day, as I sit here in this chair, that angered me, and I went, "How dare you say that? You don't know me well enough to think I'm that simple," And I became a couple of those guys that was on that rig that day. I became their boss at one point, and that's the impact it had on me.
You and I have talked about this when we get to the whole book, The 5 People You Meet in Heaven, and all these different things. We got this book exchange thing going now, which is pretty awesome. Those are those gifts we've talked about that you get when you get mad. If you know how to channel that energy, when you're done being mad, to turn around and go, "Okay, what am I supposed to learn from this? Where's the lesson here?" Right. And turn it around to a positive. And you just said it. You said it for me. I've said it in all my classes, and we've talked about the show before. Is you took that anger of how dare you treat me that way, and I've never seen you do anything but take care of your rookies when they come in the firehouse and make sure your guys do it. And there's the lesson that Jerry Wells made the very first day. Is I'm sure you told you I would never do that to a rookie firefighter.
Right.
And it's just now that real quick before I forget the 10 Commandments, and I know John's like sometimes running about 10 different directions. Were you ever able to get that from him?
I got a copy of a broader version of it, not the shorter version that was hanging on the wall, but I did get a bigger version of it. Yes.
At the end, would you be willing, if folks wanted that, where they could email you and get a copy of that?
Absolutely.
So what we'll do at the end of the show, we'll definitely mention your email address, and those folks out there that want to get a copy of it. It's titled The 10 Commandments of being a rookie.
Rookie's 10 Commandments.
Okay, let's do that at the end of the show. We'll mention that. All right, you've got them in here. We've done some different things. We've talked about, and some of the guys you mentioned, Jerry, are what I've always called the go-to guys.
Mm-hmm.
The Jonesies and the Bortsfields and the Rob Reeds and the Murphys. When those guys were younger in their careers, that you could go to them and you could ask them to do something for you. And they did it not because they were ass kissing or apple polishing. They didn't care what you thought per se about. They did it for you because they were proud to work here. They had They were probably the ones that had their. You'd walk out and they're wrapping their tools or painting something, or they're in there cleaning something. Those were your go-to guys. Walk me through, and we could go on for hours, and I don't want to do that with this particular show today. But walk me through, what do you do with when you get your rookie that day? There's a couple of things I want you to hit on. I think you know what they are, but first day, you get your brand new firefighter on your shift. You're the battalion chief. What do you do with them?
I get them in there, and we basically, the first day I'll usually give them a pretty easy day, just kind of sit and watch and, become involved as much as they want to. And then we'll sit down and we'll talk. And I'll tell them I've got two expectations or two really big things I need from them. I said, I want your gear out and ready to go at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I want 100% of your undivided attention, kind of one of those be here now things. When the tones go off, from the time the tones go off till we go out and we mitigate the emergency, I want you 100%. And I want my senior firefighters that way. I want my drivers, and I want my whoever they are, whoever's in the rig, 100% serious. And when the call's over, we'll have a good time. We'll muck it up, just have a ball. But that's the two biggest things. The whole deal is we're going to have a good time here. This job is intense sometimes. It has really big ups and really big downs, but we're going to have a good time while we're doing it. And my whole process is the way that I was an officer. I guess I based it on one thing I read in a silly little book that has been around for years, and that's called "See You at the Top" by Zig Ziglar. You remember that book?
Uh-huh.
And he makes a line. His line in there as a leader. Get somebody to do something because they want to, not because you tell them to. And to me, that's one of the most valuable lines I've ever read for a firehouse officer, because that tells me that I have to get into that guy's heart, and I got to find out what makes him tick, and I got to, work on that aspect instead of me standing around and think how proud and how great I am. Here, you look at me, you're in my house, do what I tell you. I don't want them to do that. I want them to buy into me, and I want them to buy into the fire service and understand what the service is about, understand that there's a chemistry with a group of guys that makes that even that much better, that it's the ultimate team sport. It takes all of us to do a certain part of that team work, and if you don't do your part, then the team fails, and that's why I try to get them to understand that they are a part of my team real early on. And that's kind of where it goes. And we get into the deal about the mopping that time, where I'll walk out there on the floor and I'll go, "Hey, Rook," and I'll call him Rook, and I'll go, "Hey, what you doing?" He's out there mopping that floor to beat the band, and he looks at me and he goes, "Mopping the floor, sir?" And I go, "No, it's not." And I'll turn around and I'll walk off, and I do it. And I don't do it. I'm not doing it to be mean, but I'm wanting him to stop and think for a minute. Okay, what did I say wrong there? This looks like mopping to me. And then I'll watch for him the next shift, and he's out there mopping that bay floor, and I go, "Hey, Rook, what do you call that?" He goes, this particular guy says, "Well, I know it's not mopping." And I said, "No, you're not. No, it's not." And I said, "I'll tell you what, next time I ask you that, why don't you make sure you have the right answer like that, And I do it with a smile on my face. I'm not being a smart aleck, but, I'll catch him the next shift, and I go, "Hey, Rook, what do you call that?" And he goes, "Pride, sir." And I go, "That's exactly right." And my point I try to make to them, and I think every one of them has got it that I've done it to, is that don't think of yourself as this is such a demeaning task that it's just mopping the firehouse bay floor, the apparatus floor. This is taking pride in the fire service as a whole. It's the whole big picture. And I start that from the first week that they work here. Try to instill in them a little bit of fire service pride. And that's where we get into in that article. You'll read the part about polishing the brass, one of your terms, but we applied that to this article. It's polishing the brass. It's, putting that special touches on. It's not about wiping the glass on the fire engines because you have to. It's because, you know what happens if I pull up in my brand new wash fire truck or up at a red light, there's a 10-year-old kid that's going to be looking out there, looking up at that pretty shiny truck with those firefighters in it, and he's going to go, wow, I want to be like that someday. That's what I want to see. That's what I saw when I was a kid.
Haven't you watched before where you're looking around and your guys are doing a tour, and the kids sometimes they're just staring at those firefighters in the rigs, and the parents are kind of looking around. And there's times where I've sat there and said, man, I hope they're not looking at what's dirty over in the corner or whatever.
Right.
And not only is it just the perception the public has of us, but it's also, that's our home.
Yeah.
The firehouse is the firehouse for a reason. That's our home. And cleaning toilets is not hardship labor. That's your task today. You're cleaning, you're taking care of our home.
Right.
Hey, but you do something. You give your rookies something from you.
Yeah.
And explain what you do with them, Jerry.
Well, I learned that after 9/11, and a very valuable tool to us, and it's a very primitive tool that we use, is a wooden door chalk. And everybody on the fire ground, on my shift, I hope has 2 or 3 of them in their pocket. But what we try to do is take one of those wooden fire chalks, and I put the 2 notches in it like Andy Fredericks. We call it the Fredericks notch down here, and that was the FDNY Andy Fredericks. Huh?
He's still teaching us, buddy.
Yeah, he's still teaching us. But we'll put those notches in there, and I'll tell the guys, here's your first tool. Have it with you at all times, and I'll put their name on it. And I'll tell you, next time I see you, tell me everything you can about this tool. And that's, I'll turn around and walk off. I don't want them to learn from me. I want them to go out and talk to the other firefighters and ask questions, and the other firefighters are kind of getting tested at the same time. It works 2 ways.
Uh-huh.
And they'll come back, and I'll say, hey, what can you tell them about that tool? And they'll tell me everything about it. They'll tell me Andy Frederick's name. He's sitting around the firehouse one day going, this is a pretty cool tool, but I think we can make it better. And if we just put a notch here and notch here, look, my goodness, look at this. You stick it in here, and there's no way it'll ever come out. There's no hose that'll knock it out. There's nobody can kick it out. This door chalk's here until the person that put it in there is going to come back and take it out. And they tell me that whole story, and that's cool, because Andy, he's not with us anymore. He died on 9/11, but he's still teaching the fire service, and that's our job, to carry his legacy on like that, and that's just something I do.
I think that's pretty incredible. Like I said, I brag on you pretty much everywhere I go, buddy, and especially when it comes to that and the way you take care of your guys. The article you did, which, like I said, we've gotten such a great response to it. Again, the rookie firefighter preparing for the roles in December 2007 of fire engineering. When you got to the point of polishing the brass, and you got to that section there was a little bit of a list. You talked about making wise choices at an early age, prepare yourself with a quality education, volunteering to gain knowledge and experience. You mentioned find a way to get involved and learn all you can. Prove you are worthy to be on the team.
Right.
You mentioned it a little bit before. Is that? And I know it's more than just cleaning the firehouse. We don't want war stories. We don't know. How do you want them to prove to you again that they're worthy of being, let's say, selfishly, a Louisville firefighter?
It's in their attitude, and it's in their ability to learn. It kind of brings me, it's kind of good you asked that. One of our rookies that came as a single rookie was Kyle Allen. He was on my shift. He came to our shift at 19 years old. There's a big difference in coming into the fire service at 19 or coming in at 26, 27, like some of these other guys we've mentioned already. He had a whole lot more to finding out, I guess, to do. And there's a kid that came in and learned, had a few bumps in the road, and showed me that he was bigger and better than I ever thought he was going to be, because he took that information, took those criticisms, turned himself into a guy that I hope always stays on B shift, the way he's turned out. But no matter what happens in your career, whether, you're sitting there in my office because we have to have a constructive criticism conversation, or we're sitting out on having a tailgate conversation, which we do often, that you're able to bounce back and go, I see the picture now. I see the bigger picture, and I still want to be a part of that team, and I'm going to be a part. And they basically come back, and they're bigger, stronger, brighter, more excited than ever. That tells you a whole lot about a person.
Well, and often, as we were looking probably at closing things out here today, it's been great having you here, buddy. I've been trying to get with you for a while. We hear our company officers a lot of times, talk about Generation X, Y, the elemental P generation, Y,
right.
and all this.
Right.
And I've mentioned before, in fact, I'm doing the article, Break Glass in Case of Fire, and I think a lot of our company officers, Jerry, have gotten to the point where they expect our young firefighters to walk into the firehouse ready to go, and they just came out of the academy, and it's
right.
up to our guys to take them to that next level, right?
It don't matter how much kind of training they have, it's still their first day.
Exactly.
They're still scared to death, and they still have to be nurtured and brought up through the service, just like we were.
And they had, a lot of guys will say, well, they've never held a hammer, they've never worked. I know that's important. I was in the trades, as a roofer. I know you were, being a tiler and other things. It's just, but you can either say that and sit at the table and sob in your coffee cup, or you can go, you know what, that's fine and dandy. I like what I see. I like the passion. I'm gonna get this guy or gal to a point where they're going to be the Mark Murphys and the Whitney Webbers and those kind of folks that are going to be the ones that you end up bragging about when you go somewhere.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think what it boils down to is we're not necessarily hiring them different than we did back in the old days. I don't know that our officers are investing themselves into these kids like they used to, and that's what we got to get back to.
Well, it's kind of funny. We've said it for years that, if you asked your grandparents, what the kids were like coming on the job back then, they go, oh, my goodness, with their rock and roll music and all that and everything else. There's some pretty incredible people out there. We've got some talented folks coming on the job. Granted, some may have an attitude problem, but I thought we were the attitude adjusters, that we can get them to where we need them, Jerry. And you've done a great job with your crew, buddy. I know you're a pretty modest guy, and I think you get that from your father. We've got 3 great shifts here. You do a great job with your folks. I know the guys love working for you. It's my honor. You're one of the best battalion chiefs. We got 3 great battalion chiefs. You're one of the best I've ever worked with in my life, and I appreciate everything you do for us.
Well, I appreciate it.
Jerry, if guys wanted to, first of all, we mentioned, and I'll say it one more time, you've got fire engineering laying around your firehouse, if not your home. Get the December 2007 issue out. It's a couple months old, and make a copy of the article and have it ready when people walk in the door to hand them. But Jerry, if they want to get a hold of you to get a copy of the 10 Commandments that you borrowed from the 18th Battalion, what's a good email address they can reach you at?
The easiest one would be J. Wells, WELLS, at cityoflouisville.com, and Louisville's LEWISVILLE.
And if you need that, if you want to get a copy, I know Jerry's will be happy to email it to you. I mean, he's that way with spreading the wealth. If you want to talk about anything that he does with his rookies, how he walks them through the day with his company officers, shoot him an email. I know he'll get back to you. Jerry, I can't thank you enough for joining us today, buddy. It was my honor to have you here, and hopefully we'll get the big one tonight, and we'll go out and have some fun and put the guys to work.
All right.
But definitely a chip off the block. Your dad's a great guy, incredible amount of respect inside and outside the Dallas Fire Department. I'm just proud every time I see him. I can shake his hand. He's one of those guys that we need more of them. We need more people like your father. We need more Jerry Wells out there doing things. So, Battalion Chief Jerry Wells from the Louisville Fire Department has been our guest today, talking about the rookie firefighter and how we take care of business. Jerry, thanks again, buddy, and I appreciate
you for having me.
Here. All righty. This is Chief Rick Lasky. Pride and Ownership's our show on Fire Engineering Radio. If you've got any thoughts, any ideas, keep the emails coming with all the great things you're doing regarding pride and ownership in your firehouse. Get some articles in for Chief Halton and Diane Fellman. Get to FDIC. Get through this website, and it's incredible. There's some new things happening. You can spend like days looking at it and not see everything on the web. If you're looking for books and videos, by all means, please. I think you'll be amazed at what you'll find through fire engineering books. This has been a great time again. We've had a great guest and some great information. If you need to get a hold of me, please, Rick at prideandownership.com, or you can use the R. Lasky, Lasky, at the cityoflouisville.com address. With that, thanks for joining us, and as always, please be safe.